Beneath the thick jungles of Mesoamerica lie the ruins of a civilization that still whispers across the centuries. The Maya, architects of towering pyramids, masters of the stars, keepers of calendars more precise than their time should have allowed. To many, the Maya are remembered for a handful of images: Chichen Itza, rising like a stone mirage, the apocalyptic warnings of the 2012 prophecy, the tales of blood sacrifice. But those are only the surface. What waits beneath is far stranger and far darker. From books speaking of creation myths to chilling accounts of human sacrifice, the Maya left behind fragments of a world both brilliant and terrifying. What most people know is only the surface: the tourist pyramids, the calendar, the echoes of a prophecy. But beneath that surface lies something far more unsettling. Hidden in the deep are layers of forgotten legends, rituals that blurred the line between life and death, and mysteries scholars still struggle to explain. The deeper we descend, the stranger it becomes. And before we get into the video, please consider subscribing to this channel. These videos take a long time and effort to make. Your support means the world to me. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Chichen Itza. Among the ruins of the ancient Maya world, none have captivated the imagination like Chichen Itza. Standing in the northern Yucatan Peninsula, this city was more than a collection of temples and plazas. It was a political, religious, and astronomical center that drew pilgrims, traders, and rulers from across Mesoamerica. Today, millions of visitors walk its grounds each year, but to the Maya, it was sacred ground, a place where the human and divine met in stone. At the heart of Chichen Itza stands the Pyramid of Kukulkan, known in Spanish as El Castillo, the castle. Rising nearly 100 feet into the air, it dominates the landscape, its steep staircases drawing the eye upward as if toward the heavens themselves. To call it a pyramid is too simple. It is, in truth, a monument to the Maya obsession with time. Each side of the pyramid holds 91 steps, and with 4 staircases combined, plus the summit platform, the total comes to 365, the number of days in a solar year. This was not coincidence. The Maya designed it as a living calendar, a structure that fused architecture with astronomy. The builders were not simply engineers, they were timekeepers, embedding the cycles of the sun and the earth into stone. But El Castillo hides a deeper spectacle. Twice each year, on the spring and autumn equinoxes, the pyramid comes alive with shadow and light. As the sun sets, a series of triangular shadows ripple down the northern staircase, connecting with the serpent heads carved at its base. For a brief moment, it appears as though a massive serpent slithers down the pyramid, the descent of the feathered serpent deity Kukulkan. To modern visitors, it is an ingenious trick of light. To the ancient Maya, it was the god himself, returning to earth to bless the world. Elsewhere in the city, temples and platforms bear carvings that hint at the Maya's obsessions. The Temple of the Warriors, with its forest of stone columns, shows reliefs of soldiers and plumed serpents, a reminder that Chichen Itza was also a city of power and conquest. The Platform of the Skulls, or Tzompantli, displays rows of carved human heads, echoing the grisly racks of real skulls once mounted there after ritual sacrifice. These images would have served as warnings and reminders of divine law. The gods demand blood, and human lives were the currency of cosmic order. Yet Chichen Itza was more than blood and spectacle. It was also a hub for trade, a place where goods from distant lands arrived: jade from Guatemala, obsidian from central Mexico, turquoise from the American Southwest, and even gold from farther south, all passed through this city. Its location made it a crossroads of cultures, blending Maya traditions with Toltec influences, creating a hybrid style visible in its architecture and art. By the time Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, Chichen Itza had already been largely abandoned, its plazas overgrown, its temples weathered by time. Yet its aura persisted, and even the Spanish recognized its former grandeur. Today, it is one of the most visited archaeological sites in the Americas, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and one of the new 7 wonders of the world. But beneath the tourist photographs and guided tours, the old mysteries linger. Why was such a powerful city abandoned? Was it famine, war, rebellion, or the shifting tides of religion and trade? The truth remains uncertain. Chichen Itza stands as both a monument to Maya genius and a reminder of how civilizations rise, flourish, and fall. To walk its grounds is to tread upon layers of meaning, a calendar in stone, a theater of blood, a crossroads of cultures, and a sacred landscape where gods once descended in light and shadow.
The Mayan calendar and the 2012 prophecy. The Maya were not only architects of stone, but architects of time. Their calendars remain among the most intricate ever devised, reflecting both scientific precision and spiritual meaning. At the foundation was the Hab, a solar year of 365 days divided into 18 months of 20 days, plus a final ominous 5-day period known as the Nameless Days. These days were considered unlucky, a time when the boundary between worlds weakened. Alongside it ran the Tolkien, a 260-day ritual calendar composed of 20-day names combined with numbers 1 through 13. This calendar governed prophecy, ceremony, and destiny itself. A child's birthday was not just a date, it was a message from the gods about their fate. When the Hab and Tolkien overlapped, they formed the calendar round, a repeating 52-year cycle. This span was crucial, for reaching its end was a dangerous moment. Would the gods allow time to continue? Would the sun rise again? Renewal ceremonies filled with fire, offerings, and sometimes blood ensured that the cosmic wheel kept turning. Yet the Maya went even further, creating the long count, a linear calendar capable of measuring thousands of years. Its zero date was set in 3114 BCE, the mythic birth of the current world. Time was then divided into massive units called baktuns, each lasting nearly 400 years. It was within this grand scale that one of history's most misunderstood legends was born. According to Maya inscriptions, the 13th Baktun ended on December 21, 2012. In Maya cosmology, the number 13 carried a sense of completion, of cycles fulfilled. But in modern imagination, this became something far more sensational. Books, films, and media outlets declared it the day of the apocalypse. Doomsday cults gathered in mountains, awaiting planetary collisions or cosmic cataclysm. Around the world, millions turned to the sky, waiting for disaster. Yet the Maya themselves never predicted the end of existence. To them, the closing of a Baktun was a moment of transition, the ending of one great cycle and the beginning of another. Just as seasons change and years renew, so too did the universe move through ages of birth and rebirth. December 2012 was not the death of the world, it was a turning of the cosmic page. Still, the fascination endures because the Maya were astonishingly accurate. Their solar year was measured within minutes of modern astronomy. Their tracking of Venus was so precise that it rivaled telescopic calculations thousands of years later. Without modern tools, they charted the heavens with a level of detail that remains difficult to comprehend. The true mystery, then, is not whether the world ended in 2012, but how the Maya achieved such mastery of time. For them, time was not abstract, it was sacred. Every day pulsed with meaning, every cycle echoed with divine will. To live was to exist within these great wheels of destiny, endlessly turning. When the 13th Baktun closed, the apocalypse never came. But perhaps the Maya were still correct. An old cycle ended and a new one began. And in their eyes, that was the closest thing to eternity. Not an ending, but a renewal, written forever in the stars.
Mayan chocolate origins. To the Maya, chocolate was far more than a sweet treat. It was sacred, a drink of the gods, a source of power and an essential part of ritual, commerce, and daily life. Today, chocolate is ubiquitous, a symbol of pleasure and indulgence, but in ancient Mesoamerica, it held a weight far beyond taste. It was an elixir, connecting humanity to the divine. The Maya cultivated the cacao tree with care, understanding its value both spiritually and economically. The seeds, known as cacao beans, were so precious that they were even used as currency, exchanged for goods, labor, or services. The humble bean could pay a debt, seal a contract, or reward loyalty. Yet their importance went beyond money. Each cacao pod contained the potential for nourishment, ceremony, and magic. Unlike the chocolate we drink today, Mayan chocolate was typically bitter and spiced. It was made by grinding roasted cacao beans into a paste, then mixing it with water, chili, maize, and sometimes honey. The result was a frothy, bitter beverage, poured from one vessel to another to create a rich foam, a sign of skill, status, and ritual purity. Drinking chocolate was a sacred act, reserved for the elite, warriors, and priests, though certain ceremonial occasions allowed broader participation. Chocolate was deeply intertwined with religion and cosmology. Many Mayan myths depict cacao as a divine gift. In some accounts, the gods themselves presented cacao to humans as nourishment for body and soul. It was consumed during religious ceremonies, often alongside offerings of incense, flowers, and bloodletting rituals. The act of drinking cacao was more than sustenance. It was a communion, a ritual that bound the participants to the gods, to their ancestors, and to the cycles of life itself. Warriors used chocolate as a source of energy and endurance. Before battles, they would drink it to fortify themselves, combining the stimulating effects of cacao with its symbolic power. For rulers and nobles, it was a sign of status and refinement. The vessels used to serve cacao were elaborately decorated with glyphs and imagery, often depicting gods, rulers, or scenes from the underworld. Even the act of drinking became a display of sophistication, religious devotion, and power. The Maya also associated chocolate with fertility and regeneration. It appears in many rituals surrounding marriage, childbirth, and agricultural cycles. The cacao bean itself, growing within a vibrant pod, symbolized potential, growth, and life emerging from the earth. This connection reinforced the Maya's worldview that human life, agricultural prosperity, and cosmic order were deeply linked, and that each sip of chocolate could strengthen these bonds. Archaeological evidence supports this reverence. Residue of cacao has been found in vessels buried in tombs, suggesting it accompanied the dead into the afterlife. The Maya believed the chocolate could sustain the soul, providing nourishment in both this world and the next.
Some pottery even depicts chocolate ceremonies alongside depictions of gods and sacred animals, showing that chocolate was as much a spiritual tool as a practical one. Chocolate was not merely a commodity or a luxury. It was a cultural keystone, central to politics, religion, and identity. Its cultivation, preparation, and consumption were carefully controlled, regulated, and celebrated. Even today, when we enjoy chocolate in cafes and homes, we are tracing a line back to the sacred traditions of the Maya, who first recognized its divine potential. In the end, Mayan chocolate reminds us that the ordinary can be extraordinary. A bitter, spiced drink became a conduit to the gods, a currency of life, and a symbol of power. It was a flavor of divinity, a taste of the cosmos, a ritual that nourished both body and soul, echoing across centuries from the jungle cities of the Maya to our modern world.
Human sacrifices. In the world of the Maya, sacrifice was not cruelty for cruelty's sake, it was survival. To them, blood was life itself, the sacred essence that bound the human world to the gods. And if the gods had shed their own blood to create humanity, then mankind was forever in debt. That debt had to be repaid. Human sacrifice was the ultimate offering. It was not performed casually, nor was it hidden. Instead, it was done with ritual precision, as a sacred exchange to keep the sun moving, the rains falling, and the cosmos in balance. Without it, the Maya believed the world could collapse into darkness. Accounts from Spanish chroniclers, alongside archaeological evidence, paint a picture of sacrifices performed in many forms. The most iconic was heart extraction. A victim, often a captured warrior, sometimes a slave, and at times even volunteers, would be painted in sacred colors, brought before the temple, and laid upon a stone altar. Priests wielding obsidian blades would open the chest in one swift, practiced cut and raise the still-beating heart skyward to the gods. The blood that followed was smeared on idols, poured onto altars, and even burned as smoke offerings carried into the heavens. Yet this was only one method. Some sacrifices involved decapitation, seen in Mayan art, connected with the hero twins from the Popol Vuh, who themselves endured death and resurrection in the underworld. At other times, victims were cast into the sacred cenote of Chichen Itza, drowned in the dark waters believed to connect directly to the rain god Cha'ak. Archaeologists have dredged up skeletons of men, women, and children from its depths, their bones confirming the legends. The blood of kings and nobles was also crucial. Unlike the sacrifices of captured outsiders, rulers offered up their own essence through bloodletting rituals. Using obsidian shards or stingray spines, they pierced their tongues, ears, or even genitals, letting blood drip onto paper, which was then burned as a sacred offering. The smoke became a bridge to the gods. In this way, rulers proved themselves worthy intermediaries, sustaining cosmic order with their personal pain. What seems brutal to modernize was, to the Maya, profoundly meaningful. Sacrifice was not just about death, but about transformation. Victims were not thought of as merely destroyed, but as travelers, offerings who crossed into the otherworld to serve the gods directly. The act renewed the universe. Spanish accounts often exaggerated the scale of sacrifice, perhaps to justify conquest by portraying the Maya as savage. But archaeology has confirmed enough evidence to prove these rituals were real, central, and deeply symbolic. They were not everyday events, but grand spectacles tied to astronomical cycles, temple dedications, droughts, and wars. In the Maya worldview, sacrifice was a dialogue with eternity, a way to keep the fragile balance of existence intact. Without blood, there could be no life.
and with each ritual, they sought to ensure that the sun would rise again, that rains would fall, and that the gods would not abandon the world. Even today, the silent temples and cenotes of the Yucatan still echo with the memory of these rituals. They remind us that for the Maya, the line between life and death was not final. It was a sacred offering, a cycle, written in blood beneath the gaze of the gods.
The Mayan ball game and sacrificial rituals. The ancient Mayan ball game, known as Alamalitzli, was far more than a sport. Across the cities of Mesoamerica, including Chichen Itza and Copan, massive stone courts bear witness to a ritual that combined athleticism, religion, and mortality. The game's purpose went beyond competition. It was a symbolic enactment of cosmic struggle, a reflection of life, death, and the cycles of the universe. At first glance, the game appears simple. Two teams attempted to propel a solid rubber ball through stone rings mounted high on the walls of the court. Yet the rules were brutal. Players could use only their hips, forearms, or thighs. The ball, often weighing several kilograms, could cause serious injury. Courts were long and narrow, amplifying both the physical challenge and the intensity of the ritual drama. The Mayan ball game was intimately tied to mythology, particularly the story of the hero twins from the Popol Vuh. Hunahpu and Xbalanque, the twin gods, descended into the underworld to face the lords of Xibalba in a deadly ball game. Their trials mirrored the struggles of human players, and the court itself became a miniature cosmos, a stage where divine battles were reenacted on Earth. Every swing of the ball, every collision carried cosmic significance. One of the most chilling aspects of the game was its association with human sacrifice. Archaeological and historical evidence suggests that the losing team, or sometimes the captain of the winning side, could be offered to the gods. Sacrifice was not random. It was a structured, ritualized conclusion to a performance that symbolized the cycle of life and death. The extracted heart, the drowning in sacred waters, or other forms of offering were seen as a necessary act to ensure fertility, rainfall, and the favor of deities like the rain god Chak or the sun god Kinich Ahau. In some depictions, the ball itself represented the sun, its movement echoing the celestial path across the sky. Players were, in a sense, earthly embodiments of cosmic forces. The court became a liminal space, a place where the boundary between the living world and the underworld blurred. The audience, often the elite or the community at large, bore witness to a spectacle of life, death, and divine order. The stakes could not have been higher. The game was entertainment, prophecy, and ritual all at once. Beyond sacrifice, the ball game was a tool for political and social control. Rulers could demonstrate their power and divine favor through sponsorship of games, staging them to coincide with astronomical events or religious festivals. Victories and defeats were laden with meaning, reinforcing social hierarchies and legitimizing the authority of kings and priests. Success in the ball game could signal the favor of the gods, while failure served as a reminder of human mortality and divine oversight. Evidence from ball courts across Mesoamerica, from carvings and reliefs to preserved artifacts, underscores the intense ritualization of the game. Some courts were aligned with celestial events, while others featured elaborate markers symbolizing the underworld and the heavens. The game was, in essence, a sacred enactment of universal order, binding players, spectators, and rulers in a complex ritual ecosystem. The Mayan ball game is a window into a civilization where sport, religion, and death were inseparable. It was a theater of cosmic balance, a place where humans could interact with divine forces, and where sacrifice was both a warning and a promise. Standing in the ruins of a stone court today,
it is impossible not to sense the echoes of chanting crowds, the thud of the rubber ball, and the ever-present reminder that in the Mayan world, the line between victory and death, between play and ritual, was razor thin.
The sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. In the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula lies one of the most mysterious and haunting features of Mayan civilization, the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. To the untrained eye, it is simply a natural sinkhole, a circular depression filled with water. But to the Maya, it was a sacred portal, a direct link between the mortal world and the divine, a place where humans could reach into the underworld and offer tribute to the gods. Measuring nearly 60 meters in diameter and plunging 27 meters deep, the cenote's sheer cliffs and dark, still waters gave it an eerie presence. The Maya considered cenotes holy wells, vital sources of life in a region where surface water was scarce. But the sacred cenote was not merely a source of drinking water. It was a site of ritual, danger, and divine negotiation. Archaeological excavations reveal just how central the cenote was to Mayan religious life. Divers and dredgers have recovered human skeletons, gold ornaments, jade jewelry, pottery, and other precious offerings from its depths. Many of these human remains show evidence of ritual sacrifice. The victims, often young men, women, and children, were sometimes killed before being cast into the water, sometimes drowned directly. These were not acts of senseless cruelty. They were offerings meant to appease Chak, the rain god, or other deities, ensuring the survival of crops, people, and cities. The cenote's significance extended beyond agriculture. It was closely tied to political and spiritual authority. Chichen Itza's temples and pyramids were aligned in ways that emphasized the sacred geography, suggesting the city itself was a cosmic center. Sacrificial ceremonies were likely public spectacles, reinforcing the ruler's divine mandate and reminding the populace of the connection between ritual and survival. Each offering, each life cast into the waters, symbolized the delicate balance between human ambition and cosmic order. Artifacts recovered from the cenote hint at a rich symbolic culture surrounding these rituals. Gold discs, jade beads, and finely crafted ceramics were often carefully placed, suggesting intentional ceremonial deposition rather than random disposal. Some scholars argue that the placement of these items, alongside certain human sacrifices, followed strict ritual codes, a choreography meant to honor the gods and sustain the universe. The cenote also reflects the Maya belief in Xibalba, the underworld. Water was seen as a threshold between worlds, and cenotes acted as conduits. By offering sacrifices, the Maya believed they could communicate with and influence unseen forces. Bones and artifacts were not just gifts, they were prayers, messages, and lifelines to powers that governed rain, fertility, and cosmic balance. Even today, the cenote exudes an unsettling aura. Standing at its edge, it is easy to imagine the chants of priests, the anxious prayers of the chosen, and the ritual rhythm of offerings slipping into the dark water. It is a place where life and death converged, where humans reached out to the gods with both hope and fear. The sacred cenote of Chichen Itza is more than an archaeological site. It is a testament to the Maya worldview, where survival, devotion, and power were intertwined.
Its waters hold centuries of offerings, secrets, and whispered prayers, a chilling reminder that in the Maya cosmos, the boundary between the living and the divine was fragile and sometimes demanded the ultimate price.
Mayan astronomy and Venus obsession. For the Maya, the night sky was not merely a backdrop for daily life. It was a living, breathing cosmos that guided kings, rituals, and the very heartbeat of their civilization. Among all celestial bodies, Venus held a special, almost terrifying significance. Its movements were carefully tracked, recorded, and woven into Mayan calendars, prophecies, and warfare. A planet both beautiful and ominous, a celestial messenger of life and death. The Maya observed Venus with astonishing precision. They noted its cycles of visibility, tracking its appearances as the morning star and evening star, and correlating these movements with earthly events. Entire codices, such as the Dresden Codex, contain tables detailing Venus's 584-day cycle, predicting eclipses, conjunctions, and dangerous periods when the planet's influence was believed to be strongest. To the Maya, Venus was not a distant dot of light. It was a god, a symbol of duality, a harbinger of war and chaos, but also a marker of order and prophecy. Venus's association with warfare was particularly striking. The Maya planned battles according to the planet's cycle, believing that attacks timed with Venus's rise as the morning star would ensure victory. Conversely, certain phases of Venus warned of impending defeat or danger. Warriors carried this celestial knowledge into combat, intertwining the practical with the mystical. Success on the battlefield was thought to reflect cosmic alignment, a balance between human action and divine orchestration. But Venus was not only a guide for war. Its movement was deeply entwined with religious ritual. Sacrifices, ceremonies, and offerings were often timed to coincide with Venus's appearances. Texts and inscriptions suggest that nobles and priests would perform bloodletting and other rites to align human activity with the planet's trajectory. Venus became a conduit through which mortals could communicate with the gods, an instrument of cosmic negotiation whose cycles dictated both celebration and fear. Astronomy knowledge extended far beyond Venus. The Maya meticulously recorded the movements of the sun, moon, and other planets. Their calendars, the Hab and the Tzolk'in, were designed not only to mark time, but to coordinate agricultural cycles, religious festivals, and political events. Observatories, such as the Karakol at Chichen Itza, allowed the Maya to track solar and lunar alignments with remarkable precision. Yet Venus always stood apart, its dual role as morning and evening star rendering it a symbol of both illumination and threat. This obsession with Venus also influenced mythology and cosmology. The Popol Vuh recounts stories of gods and heroes whose actions mirror the cycles of celestial bodies, reflecting a worldview in which the heavens dictate the rhythm of human life. Venus, in particular, was linked to the god Kukulkan and other deities, bridging the realms of sky, earth, and underworld. Its brilliance was both inspiring and terrifying, a reminder of the god's power and humanity's dependence on celestial favor. Even today, archaeologists marvel at the Maya's astronomical sophistication. Long before telescopes or modern mathematics, they tracked Venus with uncanny accuracy, aligning temples, pyramids, and ball courts with its cycles. Their obsession was not idle curiosity, but a core part of survival, religion, and political authority. The planet was a clock, a guide, and a messenger of divine will,
one whose appearances could dictate the fate of entire cities. The Maya obsession with Venus illustrates a civilization in which the heavens were inseparable from human life. Victory, harvest, ritual, and sacrifice were all orchestrated in accordance with a celestial rhythm. In the night sky above Chichen Itza, Copan, and countless other cities, Venus shone as both beacon and warning, a constant reminder that in the Maya world, the cosmos and the Earth were bound together, and that the cycles of a single planet could shape the destiny of nations.
The Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh is often described as the Mayan Book of the People, a text that survived against all odds. What makes it so extraordinary is not only its rarity, but also the strange journey it took to reach us. Most of what we know about ancient Maya belief systems comes not from stone carvings or temple murals, but from this fragile manuscript, a record that nearly disappeared forever. The Popol Vuh began as an oral tradition passed down for generations among the Kaichi Maya of the Guatemalan highlands. It was only written down after the Spanish conquest, likely in the mid-1500s, by anonymous Maya nobles who feared their history and myths would be lost under colonial suppression. The version we know today was copied in the early 1700s by a Dominican friar named Francisco Jimenez, who translated it into Spanish. His copy is the only surviving text. That means everything: the myths of creation, the adventures of gods, the origin of humans, all rest on one fragile chain of preservation. Without it, the spiritual world of the Maya might have been erased forever. At its heart, the Popol Vuh is a cosmic narrative of creation and destruction. It tells us how the gods first tried to create humans out of mud, but they crumbled away. Then they tried wood, but these beings were soulless, hollow. They walked the earth but had no true spirit, so the gods sent a flood to destroy them. Finally, humans were fashioned from maize, corn, the lifeblood of the Maya. From this point forward, maize was not just food, but the very substance of humanity. Every meal was a reminder of divine origins. This deep connection explains why maize rituals, offerings, and festivals were so central to Maya culture. But the Popol Vuh doesn't stop with creation myths. It also introduces us to the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, whose adventures are among the most fascinating stories in ancient mythology. They are tricksters, warriors, and saviors all at once. The gods of death summon them to the underworld, Xibalba, where they must face trials of darkness, fire, and cold. The underworld lords try to outwit them with deadly ball games and traps. Yet the twins use cunning and sacrifice to defeat them, eventually rising into the heavens as the sun and the moon. This story was not just entertainment. It reflected the Maya view of life, death, and rebirth. The underworld was not a place of eternal damnation, but part of the cosmic cycle, something to be faced and overcome. The Popol Vuh also gives us glimpses into how the Maya saw ritual sacrifice, kingship, and destiny. Blood offerings were described as a way of nourishing the gods, ensuring the cycles of creation continued. Kings and nobles, often seen as semi-divine, traced their legitimacy back to the mythic figures described in the Popol Vuh. The book wasn't just myth, it was a political tool and a sacred guide, tying rulers to the cosmic order. What makes the Popol Vuh even more mysterious is its tone of secrecy. Scholars believe much of the original meaning was deliberately hidden. Certain passages feel cryptic, layered, as though only initiates could fully understand them. Even the act of writing it down was dangerous. The Spanish were actively burning Mayan books, labeling them as works of the devil. To preserve their sacred knowledge, the Maya likely encoded certain elements, ensuring outsiders could never fully grasp its depth.
In this way, the Popol Vuh is both a survival of memory and a shield of mystery. Today, the Popol Vuh remains one of the great literary treasures of humanity, yet it is still shadowed by uncertainty. Was the version we have heavily altered by Spanish influence? What parts of it reflect genuine pre-Columbian thought, and what was reshaped in the act of preservation? These questions linger, but one truth remains. It is a window into the Mayan soul, one of the few that survived conquest and fire. The Popol Vuh is not simply a myth. It is a reminder of resilience, of a people whose stories refused to vanish even in the face of erasure. It is the voice of the ancient Maya, still whispering across centuries.
Crystal skulls, pseudo-archaeology. Among the many mysteries attributed to the ancient Maya, few have captured modern imagination quite like the crystal skulls. These perfectly carved, translucent skulls, often made from clear or milky quartz, are said to possess mystical powers, healing, psychic insight, even prophecy. Their allure is undeniable, appearing in books, films, and documentaries as artifacts of unimaginable ancient knowledge. Yet their origins are far murkier than popular culture suggests. Crystal skulls first gained attention in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when explorers and collectors brought them to Europe. Some claimed they had been discovered in the jungles of Central America, including regions once occupied by the Maya. Others were presented as treasures from Aztec or Olmec sites, blurring the lines of historical accuracy. The craftsmanship is undeniably impressive. The precision and polish of these skulls is extraordinary. But modern analysis suggests that many were carved with metal tools unavailable to pre-Columbian societies, placing their true creation in the colonial or modern era. Despite the skepticism of archaeologists, the skulls are often linked to Mayan mythology. Some suggest they are repositories of ancient wisdom, echoes of the Mayas' deep knowledge of astronomy, medicine, and cosmology. Legends claim that each skull holds the memory of humanity or acts as a beacon guiding spiritual awakening. Within the pseudo-archaeological community, stories abound of skulls causing visions, influencing dreams, or even preserving the secrets of lost civilizations. The fascination with crystal skulls highlights a broader human desire to uncover forbidden knowledge, artifacts that appear to bridge the gap between the mundane and the divine. The Maya themselves left behind carved representations of skulls in their art and architecture, often associated with death, sacrifice, and the underworld. In this sense, the obsession with crystal skulls, while modern, resonates with ancient symbolism, the skull as a vessel of mystery, power, and the unknown. Archaeological scrutiny, however, paints a more grounded picture. Most crystal skulls examined under modern laboratory conditions show tool marks consistent with 19th or 20th century carving techniques. No verified examples have been found in controlled Maya excavation sites, and the idea that they were ancient repositories of mystical knowledge is widely regarded as a modern invention. Yet, even as pseudo-archaeology, crystal skulls persist as cultural icons, embodying humanity's enduring fascination with the enigmatic. Whether authentic or fabricated, the crystal skull phenomenon continues to captivate imaginations. Museums, collectors, and mystics debate their origin and meaning, while the skulls themselves remain silent, cold, and perfect. They serve as mirrors, reflecting not the past of the Maya necessarily, but the hopes, fears, and obsessions of those who seek to connect with something beyond the ordinary. The story of the crystal skulls is a cautionary tale in itself, a reminder that in the pursuit of knowledge, fact and myth often intertwine. And much like the deeper layers of the Mayan iceberg, the truth may be obscured beneath a surface of allure, legend, and speculation, waiting for those bold enough to look deeper, but elusive enough to remain out of reach. Lost cities in the jungle, El Mirador. Deep within the dense jungles of northern Guatemala lie the remnants of an ancient Mayan world largely hidden from modern eyes. Among these forgotten sites, El Mirador stands out as one of the most mysterious and awe-inspiring. Long swallowed by vegetation and nearly invisible from the ground, it is a city of immense scale, rivaling Chichen Itza and Tikal in its monumental architecture. Yet, it remained largely unknown to the outside world for centuries. El Mirador flourished during the late pre-classic period, around 300 BCE to 150 CE, making it one of the earliest major urban centers of the Maya. Its sheer size is staggering. The city covers hundreds of square kilometers and is home to colossal pyramids such as La Danta, one of the largest pyramids by volume on Earth. Unlike the stone monuments familiar to most tourists, these structures were built using layers of earth and rubble, ingeniously engineered to endure centuries of tropical decay. Walking through El Mirador is like stepping into a lost civilization, where towering platforms and hidden plazas emerge through the thick foliage. What makes these jungle cities truly haunting is how easily they disappeared. Entire urban centers, once bustling with tens of thousands of people, were reclaimed by the forest, leaving behind only faint traces for archaeologists to uncover. The Maya collapse, while studied extensively, remains partly mysterious. Scholars debate whether environmental degradation, overpopulation, warfare, or drought caused these cities to vanish. In El Mirador's case, the enormous construction projects may have exhausted local resources, contributing to the city's abandonment long before the classic Maya collapse. El Mirador and other hidden cities like Nakbe and La Corona challenge conventional ideas about the Maya. They reveal a civilization far older and more sophisticated than many early explorers realized. The scale of these sites suggests advanced knowledge of urban planning, agriculture, and hydraulics. Reservoirs and canals indicate deliberate water management, essential in a humid, flood-prone environment. Roads and causeways, some extending for tens of kilometers, connect cities in a network of commerce, communication, and ritual. These features highlight a Maya world that was not scattered villages, but a thriving civilization with deep political and religious networks. The jungle setting adds a layer of mystery that modern cities cannot replicate. Canopy-obscured pyramids, hidden plazas, and overgrown causeways give the impression of a civilization frozen in time, waiting for explorers to rediscover its secrets. Archaeologists often describe the experience as surreal, the sense of standing in a city lost for millennia, surrounded by sounds of wildlife, with only the rustle of leaves and distant birdsong for company. Yet, the story of these lost cities is more than archaeology. It is also a reflection of human hubris and resilience. The Maya built enormous civilizations in harmony with, and sometimes in tension with, their environment. When the balance tipped, the cities faded, leaving a silent jungle as the only witness. Each rediscovered pyramid, plaza, or stela is a haunting reminder of the grandeur and fragility of human achievement. El Mirador's rediscovery in the 20th century has prompted new exploration, excavation, and preservation efforts. But much remains hidden, buried beneath centuries of growth and decay. Satellite imagery, LiDAR scans, and ongoing fieldwork continue to reveal the extent of these urban networks, suggesting that the Maya world may have been far more complex than previously imagined. Walking through these hidden cities today, it is impossible not to feel the echoes of life that once thrived there. The ceremonies, the commerce, the rituals, and the daily routines of thousands of people who built, governed, and worshipped in this jungle civilization. The lost cities of the Maya are more than ruins. They are silent witnesses to a world that vanished, leaving only questions and mysteries that continue to captivate the imagination.
The White Roads.
The Maya world was vast, fragmented, and spread across dense jungles, mountains, and coastal plains. Yet somehow, cities separated by hundreds of kilometers remained connected, culturally, politically, and even physically. The key to this network lay in something remarkable: the sakbelb, or white roads. These ancient causeways, built of bright limestone plaster that gleamed under the tropical sun and the moonlight alike, were more than just highways. They were arteries of power, trade, religion, and myth. The sakbelb were not simple dirt paths trodden by foot. They were carefully engineered constructions, elevated above the jungle floor, sometimes several meters wide and stretching for astonishing distances. Some ran between temples within a single city. Others extended outward, linking neighboring kingdoms. The longest known sakbe, connecting Koba to Yaksuna, stretches nearly 100 kilometers, an engineering marvel in its own right. For a civilization without beasts of burden, carts, or the wheel in practical use, such roads might seem unnecessary, and yet their construction reveals how central mobility, pilgrimage, and connection were to Maya life. The whiteness of these roads was not incidental. The crushed limestone plaster reflected moonlight, allowing night travel and possibly symbolizing something far deeper. In Maya cosmology, whiteness was tied to purity, to the celestial realm, to the path of the gods. To walk upon a sakbe may have been to trace a sacred journey, not just a physical one. Some scholars suggest that the roads mirrored the Milky Way, which the Maya saw as the white road of the heavens, a cosmic path for souls and deities. If so, then every traveler who set foot on these gleaming highways was, in a sense, walking a microcosm of the universe itself. The sakbeob carried more than religious meaning. They facilitated the movement of goods: jade, obsidian, cacao, salt, and exotic feathers traveled along these routes. Traders, organized into guilds and known as polom, moved between cities with packs strapped to their backs. Diplomats, nobles, and priests also journeyed upon these sacred ways, carrying messages and maintaining the ties that held the fractious Maya world in an uneasy balance. In times of war, the sakbeob could serve as military routes, enabling rapid mobilization of warriors between allied cities. The construction of these roads required immense labor. Jungle had to be cleared, stones quarried, foundations laid, and plaster applied, all without draft animals or metal tools. To build a sakbe was not just practical, it was political. A ruler who ordered a great road to be built was making a statement of dominance, binding smaller towns into his sphere of influence. The colossal sakbe from Koba is thought to represent that city's attempt to assert power over Yaksuna, linking the two in a bond that was both physical and symbolic. The fact that such roads stretched in straight lines, often ignoring the contours of the landscape, shows that practicality was sometimes sacrificed in favor of demonstrating authority and divine order. Yet the Maya world collapsed in the centuries before the Spanish arrived. Many sakbeob fell into disuse. Jungle vines reclaimed them, the brilliant plaster darkened with soil and moss, and the once bustling arteries of civilization grew silent. Even so, traces of these white roads remain, hidden beneath forest canopies, but visible through modern tools like LiDAR, which have revealed lost highways stretching between ruins long thought isolated. The sakbeob remind us that the Maya were not just city builders, but network builders. Their civilization was not a patchwork of isolated kingdoms, but a web, tied together by gleaming ribbons of stone that doubled as highways of both commerce and spirit.
To walk upon one today is to step into a liminal space between earth and sky, practicality and symbolism, human endeavor and cosmic journey.
Maya bloodletting rituals. Among the Maya, blood was not merely a life force, it was the very essence of cosmic balance. To shed blood was to open a channel between the human and the divine, a ritual offering that nourished the gods and sustained the universe itself. These ceremonies, known today as bloodletting rituals, were among the most sacred practices of Maya kings, queens, and priests, woven into the very fabric of their political and spiritual life. The ritual often began in darkness or beneath the rising sun, accompanied by incense smoke that curled like spirits into the air. Rulers drew blood from their own bodies, piercing their tongues, lips, ears, or genitals with stingray spines, obsidian blades, or sharpened bone. Women, especially queens, played a vital role, often pulling ropes studded with thorns through their tongues, each drop of blood feeding the gods and legitimizing dynastic power. The spilled blood was collected on strips of bark paper, then burned in fire bowls. As the paper turned to smoke, it was believed the essence rose skyward, summoning ancestral spirits and deities to appear in visions. In Maya thought, these visions were not hallucinations, but genuine encounters with the supernatural. Rulers, weakened by loss of blood, sometimes entered altered states of consciousness, reporting visions of serpents, gods, or ancestors who offered divine counsel. These visions reinforced the ruler's authority, proving that they alone could bridge the mortal and divine realms. The survival of their kingdoms depended not just on military might, but on this sacred duty of bleeding for the gods. The ritual was more than personal devotion. It was a performance witnessed by entire cities. Public plazas filled with incense, music, and chanting, while the ruler's sacrifice was displayed before thousands. Such spectacles demonstrated not only piety, but power. A king who bled for his people was one who had the gods' favor. Failure to perform these rites could be seen as a dangerous neglect of cosmic duty, inviting drought, famine, or disaster. But why blood? To the Maya, blood carried chulel, sacred life energy. By releasing it, humans repaid the gods, who, according to Maya creation myths, had shed their own blood to form the world and humanity. Bloodletting was a reciprocal act, a cosmic debt repaid with pain and devotion. The deeper the sacrifice, the greater the favor expected in return. Archaeology has preserved haunting traces of these practices. At sites such as Yaxchilan, stone lintels depict queens pulling thorned cords through their tongues, while kings hold blood-soaked paper ready for burning. Vessels and carvings show rulers in trance-like states, serpent deities emerging from coils of smoke. Even stingray spines and obsidian blades have been uncovered in tombs, silent witnesses to rituals performed centuries ago. Yet, as with so much of Maya culture, mystery lingers. Were these rituals daily acts of devotion, or reserved for key moments, coronations, victories, or celestial alignments? Did every drop of royal blood alter the course of history? Or were the visions deeply personal, never meant for public knowledge? The Maya left no unbroken record to answer these questions. What remains are fragments, stone carvings, burned incense bowls, bloodletting tools that whisper of a practice where pain, sacrifice, and transcendence intertwined. The image is at once haunting and profound. The Dresden Codex. Of the thousands of books once created by the Maya, only 4 are known to survive today. Among them, the Dresden Codex is the most complete and celebrated, a rare window into the intellectual and spiritual world of a vanished civilization. Written on bark paper and folded accordion style, this manuscript dates to the 11th or 12th century, but likely copied much older knowledge preserved by Maya scribes. Today, it rests in the Saxon State Library in Dresden, Germany, having survived war, conquest, and fire. Its survival is almost miraculous, given that Spanish friars systematically destroyed Maya texts during the 16th century, denouncing them as works of the devil. The Dresden Codex is not a narrative book like the Popol Vuh. Rather, it is a dense almanac of calendars, astronomical records, and ritual instructions. Its hieroglyphs and vivid illustrations are laid out with meticulous precision, each page functioning as a chart for diviners, priests, and astronomer priests who interpreted cosmic cycles. To the Maya, time was sacred and patterned, not linear. The Codex reflects this worldview, offering guidance on how celestial rhythms should dictate human ceremonies. One of its most famous sections is the Venus table. The Maya tracked Venus with extraordinary accuracy, recording its 584-day cycle through the sky. The Codex links each appearance of Venus, whether as the morning or evening star, to omens of war, sacrifice, and divine favor. Priests may have used these calculations to determine the timing of military campaigns, reinforcing the idea that warfare itself had to align with the heavens. Astronomers later marveled that Maya calculations of Venus rivaled those of much later European science. Another section of the Codex is devoted to eclipse predictions. These records warned when the sun or moon might be swallowed by shadow, events considered dangerous and requiring ritual intervention. The priests who read the Codex were guardians of cosmic order, ensuring that offerings and bloodletting kept the balance between the human and divine worlds. The manuscript also includes instructions for sacrifices, rain rituals, and divinations concerning agriculture. In an agrarian society dependent on rainfall, such guidance could mean the difference between survival and famine. Equally striking are the illustrations. Deities are drawn with elaborate costumes, carrying weapons, serpents, or ceremonial objects. Some deities drip blood from their hands or tongues, emphasizing the sacred role of sacrifice. Pages show water streaming from the sky, sometimes with the rain god Chak pouring life from a jar. Others depict skeletal death gods, emphasizing that destruction and renewal were inseparable in Maya cosmology. These images made the Codex not only a scientific tool, but also a religious manual, merging calculation with myth. The journey of the Dresden Codex from the Yucatan to Europe is still somewhat mysterious. It was likely acquired by Spanish officials in the early colonial period, then passed through collectors before reaching Dresden in the 18th century. During World War II, the manuscript was damaged by water in the bombing of Dresden, leaving stains that obscure some of its glyphs. Yet its core remains intact, making it the single most important surviving Maya text for understanding their astronomy and religion. For modern scholars, the Dresden Codex has been invaluable in deciphering Maya hieroglyphics. Because it contains repeated glyphs linked to predictable cycles, epigraphers could use it as a key to unlock their language. Its survival, thus, not only preserved Maya knowledge, but also made possible the rediscovery of their writing systems centuries later. Today, the Codex is a symbol of resilience. It reminds us of all that was lost in the fires of conquest, but also of the extraordinary sophistication of the Maya, who looked to the heavens and recorded their place in cosmic time. It is both a fragile artifact and a living voice of a people who saw the universe as an intricate dance of gods, stars, and blood.
Child sacrifices during droughts. The Maya world was deeply tied to cycles of rain and fertility.
Their survival depended on the seasonal arrival of water to sustain maize, the foundation of their diet and culture. But when the rains failed, when droughts gripped the land and crops withered in the fields, the Maya turned to rituals of desperation. Among the most chilling of these were sacrifices involving children. Archaeological evidence, particularly from sacred wells and cenotes in the Yucatan, reveals that children were sometimes offered to the gods in hopes of restoring balance and bringing rain. The most famous site tied to such practices is the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza, a vast natural sinkhole where offerings of gold, jade, incense, and human remains have been found. Early Spanish chroniclers recorded that children, especially boys and girls chosen for their purity, were cast into the waters alive as gifts to Chac, the Maya rain god. The belief was that their tears as they wept before sacrifice mirrored the rains the people so desperately needed. Modern excavations have confirmed these accounts. Skulls and bones of children recovered from cenotes show signs of ritual death, sometimes by drowning, other times by wounds inflicted before their bodies were consigned to the sacred waters. For the Maya, this was not cruelty for its own sake, but a necessary exchange. Life offered for life, innocence given to restore cosmic order. The practice was not limited to cenotes. During prolonged droughts, children were also sacrificed on altars, with blood drawn or hearts removed in ceremonies meant to open communication with the gods. Such rituals were particularly common in times of extreme famine, when the survival of entire cities hung in the balance. To the Maya, the children's role was both tragic and holy. They were seen as messengers who could bridge the mortal world and the divine. These sacrifices fit into the broader Maya worldview of reciprocity with the gods. The universe was sustained by offerings, and blood, considered the essence of life, was the most powerful gift. Adults often bled themselves in rituals, but in moments of dire need, the blood of children was thought to carry unique potency. Their youth and purity made them ideal vessels to plead with Chac for mercy. This practice also highlights the severity of climate stress in the Maya world. Recent studies of lake sediments and cave stalagmites have revealed evidence of prolonged droughts coinciding with the decline of major Maya cities. Such environmental disasters would have forced communities to amplify their rituals, escalating to the most extreme forms of sacrifice in order to sway the gods. Though horrifying to modernize, child sacrifice was rooted in the Maya cosmology and their struggle against forces beyond their control. For them, it was not an act of senseless violence, but of cosmic necessity. To let the drought continue unchecked meant slow death for thousands. To give the life of a few, however agonizing, was seen as the only way to restore balance and survival. The stories of these rituals echo through both the archaeological record and the myths recorded after the Spanish conquest. They revealed the deep desperation of a civilization battling nature itself, and the lengths to which belief can drive a people when survival is at stake. In the tears of sacrificed children, the Maya saw not only grief but hope, the promise that the rains might once again fall and life return to the fields.
Caves as portals to Xibalba, underworld. For the ancient Maya, caves were not mere hollows in the earth, they were sacred gateways to another realm. In Maya cosmology, the world was layered, the heavens above, the earthly plane in the middle, and beneath it all, Xibalba, the underworld, a place of trials, darkness, and gods associated with death and rebirth. Unlike the Christian underworld, which is often tied solely to punishment, Xibalba was more complex. It was a realm where ancestors resided, where life's cycles continued, and where divine forces tested both mortals and deities. Caves, with their mysterious depths, dripping stalactites, and echoes of unseen chambers, were viewed as physical entrances to this shadowy world. Archaeological excavations in regions such as Belize, Guatemala, and the Yucatan Peninsula have revealed that the Maya used caves extensively for ritual purposes. In sites like Actun Tunachil in Belize, archaeologists have found pottery, altars, and even human remains all placed deliberately deep within cavern chambers. The presence of sacrificed individuals, including children, shows that these rituals were not symbolic alone. They were acts meant to appease or petition the gods who dwelled in the underworld. Water within caves was especially significant. Since cenotes and cave pools connected to underground rivers, they were believed to be veins of the earth, conduits between the living and the divine. The Popol Vuh, the Maya creation myth, describes the hero twins journeying into Xibalba to face its lords. They endure trials of fire, darkness, and trickery, ultimately defeating the underworld gods and ensuring the renewal of life. This narrative reinforced the idea that caves and sinkholes were testing grounds, liminal zones where humans could engage with divine forces, just as the hero twins had done. Entering a cave was a symbolic descent into the mythic story itself. Artifacts found in these spaces tell us about the types of offerings left for the gods. Broken ceramics, for instance, were common. To the Maya, smashing a vessel in ritual was a way of killing it, releasing its essence to the spirit world. Torches, burned copal incense, and blood offerings also filled these spaces with smoke and scent, blurring the boundaries between realms. In some caves, evidence of elaborate ceremonies suggests that rulers and nobles led processions underground, bringing with them musicians, attendants, and sacrificial victims. Child sacrifices, in particular, seem to have been linked to drought and agricultural crises. Since caves were associated with water and fertility, offering children, symbols of purity and renewal, was thought to please the rain god Chak, or the underworld lords who controlled natural cycles. These acts, however gruesome, reflected a belief that life and death were intertwined, and that the blood of the innocent could coax life-giving rains from the gods. Even today, Maya communities in parts of Guatemala and Mexico view caves as spiritually charged places. Modern rituals, though Christianized, often blend old beliefs with Catholic prayers, continuing the association of caves with divine presence. Shamans still leave offerings of candles, food, or alcohol at cave entrances, maintaining a tradition that stretches back millennia. In essence, caves were not feared as places of monsters or demons, but embraced as thresholds. They were doorways where one could ask for rain, plead for healing, or commune with ancestors. To step inside was to accept the risk of contact with powers beyond human control. For the Maya, the earth was alive, and its hidden chambers were its lungs and veins, breathing with the presence of Xibalba.
Torture instruments. Beyond voluntary bloodletting, the Maya also employed a range of torture instruments, often in ritual or punitive contexts. Pain was not merely suffering, it was transformation, a tool to invoke divine presence or enforce social order. Stingray spines and obsidian blades were used for piercing flesh, especially in self-sacrificial rites, but they also doubled as instruments of torture for captives. Rope embedded with thorns was dragged across the skin or pulled through wounds, prolonging agony. Some depictions suggest that prisoners of war were bound, beaten, or subjected to ritual mutilation before being sacrificed. Other tools included sharp bone needles, spiked cords, and heated objects pressed against the body. Instruments were chosen not just for their physical effects, but for their symbolic weight. Stingrays, for instance, were associated with danger and the underworld, making their spines spiritually potent weapons. These acts were rarely random cruelty. Torture served ritualized purposes, weakening captives before sacrifice, extracting symbolic blood offerings, or demonstrating the dominance of victors. In the Maya worldview,
pain opened pathways to the supernatural, whether endured by willing nobles or by unfortunate captives. The instruments of torture were extensions of sacred duty, tools meant to feed gods, sustain the cosmos, or remind societies of divine and earthly hierarchies.
Undiscovered codices rumored to still exist. Only 4 Maya codices are confirmed to survive today: the Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and the debated Grolier. Each is a window into the Maya mind, astronomy, rituals, calendars, but they are fragments of a vast, lost library. The Spanish conquest saw thousands of painted bark books cast into fire, declared demonic by missionaries. Entire archives were reduced to ash, their secrets gone. But whispers remain. Some accounts suggest hidden codices were smuggled away, concealed in caves or temple vaults. Rumors circulate of private collections, codices never shown to the public, traded among collectors or locked away in secrecy. Indigenous oral traditions hinted writings kept safe from the flames, handed down or buried with kings to protect sacred knowledge. For centuries, explorers and locals alike have reported sightings of strange manuscripts. Descriptions of bark paper painted with hieroglyphics, glimpsed briefly before vanishing into obscurity. Could these be genuine or clever forgeries designed to fool scholars? Even today, the jungle still guards countless sealed chambers, some untouched since the Classic era. If even one undiscovered codex were to surface, it could reshape our understanding of the Maya. Forgotten histories, dynastic records, prophecies, and scientific systems may still exist in ink on bark, waiting in silence. The possibility lingers like an unanswered riddle. The disappearance of major Maya cities. The disappearance of major Maya cities remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in archaeology. For centuries, vibrant centers like Tikal, Copan, Calakmul, and Palenque thrived with monumental architecture, intricate trade networks, and advanced astronomical knowledge. Yet by the end of the 9th century CE, many of these great cities were abandoned, their plazas silent, and temples left to the jungle. Archaeologists have long debated why such a powerful civilization unraveled. One leading theory points to environmental stress. The Maya relied heavily on rain-fed agriculture, and evidence suggests prolonged droughts devastated crops. Coupled with deforestation and soil exhaustion, food shortages could have sparked famine and migration. Another theory emphasizes warfare. Competing city-states may have fought intensely over resources, destabilizing alliances and draining populations. Internal strife, rebellion against ruling elites, or the collapse of trade routes may have also played decisive roles. Some scholars suggest a combination, an intricate web of climate change, political upheaval, disease, and economic collapse. Others point to spiritual or cultural transformation, where cities were abandoned as sacred cycles ended, fulfilling cosmic prophecies in Maya belief. The truth likely lies in many causes intertwining, with each city meeting its fate differently. What is certain is that while monumental centers fell, the Maya people did not vanish. Their descendants still live across Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, preserving traditions, languages, and resilience. The collapse of their cities was not an end, but a transformation, one that still leaves us questioning how a civilization so advanced could be undone by forces both human and natural. 9 Lords of the Night. In Maya cosmology, the underworld, Xibalba, was ruled not by a single deity, but by a pantheon of powerful and enigmatic figures. Among them, the 9 lords of the night held particular significance. Each lord governed one of the 9 nights of the ritual week, presiding over death, disease, misfortune, or protection, depending on the circumstances. Unlike gods of creation or the sun, these deities were dark, unpredictable, and intimately tied to human fate. The names and functions of these lords are recorded in the Dresden Codex, a rare surviving Maya manuscript, as well as in later colonial chronicles. Each night, a different lord exercised influence, determining whether omens were favorable or dangerous. The Maya believed that understanding the cycles of these deities could help predict illness, crop failure, or success in warfare. Priests, scribes, and rulers used the codices to chart rituals precisely aligned with the Lord's powers, attempting to negotiate or appease them. The identities of these 9 rulers were often depicted in terrifying forms: skeletal figures, decayed bodies, jaguar-like creatures, or masked entities bearing attributes of death. They were not merely symbolic, they were agents of cosmic balance. The Maya did not see Xibalba as a distant or abstract place. It was a living, breathing realm interacting constantly with the earthly plane. The 9 lords exemplified this relationship, their dominion extending into daily life and the natural world. Rituals linked to the 9 lords were carefully timed. Offerings of food, incense, or blood might be presented during the specific night ruled by a particular lord. These acts were believed to protect communities from misfortune, disease, or spiritual attack. Some depictions show these lords in courtly settings, presiding over trials of the dead or the fallen heroes of myth. They were not merely destructive forces, they maintained the equilibrium of life and death, ensuring that cosmic cycles continued unbroken. The concept of 9 rulers of the underworld also appears in Maya mythological narratives, such as the Popol Vuh, where heroes descend into Xibalba and face trials orchestrated by lords and demons. The number 9, sacred to the Maya, symbolized the final stage of life, the threshold between the mortal realm and the afterlife. Each lord represented a unique obstacle or aspect of death, and understanding them was essential for navigating both spiritual and earthly challenges. Even today, the legacy of the 9 lords persists in modern Maya spiritual practices. Certain communities still observe ritual cycles or offer prayers and small sacrifices to underworld forces, blending pre-Columbian belief with Catholic traditions. Their continued reverence demonstrates the enduring power of these deities, whose influence once shaped every night, every ritual, and every aspect of life for the ancient Maya. The 9 lords of the night remind us that for the Maya, life and death were inseparable, and the cosmos was ruled by forces both terrifying and necessary. They are a window into a worldview where divine power is manifold, layered, and deeply intertwined with human fate, a haunting glimpse into the shadows of an extraordinary civilization.
Ancient astronaut theories tied to Mayan glyphs. Among the most speculative and controversial aspects of Maya studies are claims that their civilization had contact with extraterrestrial beings. Proponents of the ancient astronaut hypothesis point to certain glyphs, carvings, and murals that appear to depict figures with elaborate helmets, elongated heads, or what some interpret as flying machines. While mainstream archaeology interprets these images within symbolic, religious, or mythological contexts, the similarities to modern technological or astronaut-like motifs have fueled fascination and debate. The Maya were masterful record keepers, documenting celestial movements, ritual calendars, and genealogies with incredible precision.
Some ancient astronaut theorists argue that the sophistication of their astronomy, the accuracy of their Venus cycles, and the detailed depiction of cosmic events suggest knowledge beyond what could be achieved independently. They claim that glyphs illustrating gods descending from the sky, wielding mysterious instruments, or traveling between realms may encode memories of visitors from another world. For example, certain stelae depict figures emerging from what appear to be serpent-shaped craft or portals, sometimes accompanied by symbols interpreted as energy beams, stars, or otherworldly beings. Critics argue these are purely symbolic, representing the descent of gods or spiritual journeys into Xibalba, the underworld. Yet the allure remains. Could the Maya have recorded real events, encounters with beings they perceived as divine, and encoded them in their complex writing system? Another point of fascination is the Maya long count calendar and its concept of cycles spanning thousands of years. Some theorists suggest the Maya may have been privy to knowledge of cosmic events, not solely from observation, but potentially from guidance by entities outside Earth. References to heavenly lords and sky travelers in codices like the Dresden or Madrid Codex are cited as evidence, though scholars generally interpret these as mythological rather than literal. The connection between glyphs and ancient astronaut theories has also been reinforced by modern fascination with crop circles, unidentified flying objects, and the general search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Researchers outside the archaeological mainstream examine Maya inscriptions and art through this lens, proposing that these ancient texts might encode instructions, warnings, or records of contact that have yet to be decoded. Skeptics are quick to point out that human imagination, religious expression, and the need to explain natural phenomena can account for every glyph, carving, and symbol the Maya left behind. The intricate depictions of gods, serpents, and celestial phenomena fit perfectly within the cosmology and spiritual practices of the civilization, requiring no extraterrestrial intervention. Yet the very complexity and foresight recorded in the Maya texts continue to spark curiosity and speculation. Whether one believes in ancient astronauts or not, the glyphs stand as a testament to the Maya's profound understanding of the cosmos, their ability to encode knowledge across generations, and their fascination with the heavens. The possibility that some meanings remain hidden, or that their origins might be more mysterious than we assume, keeps this theory alive in the minds of explorers, historians, and the public alike. In the end, the debate over extraterrestrial influence is less about proof and more about awe. The Maya glyphs remind us that the sky has always inspired wonder, mystery, and questions that stretch far beyond the boundaries of Earth itself.
The story of the Maya is not just one of stone temples and carved glyphs. It is a story of silence, of questions stretching across centuries still unanswered. Their cities rose from the jungle, filled with mathematics, astronomy, and ritual, only to collapse, leaving fragments behind. Codices were burned, voices erased, yet their echoes remain. Bloodletting rituals, gods of the underworld, hidden books whispered about in rumors, each points to a culture reaching beyond the human, seeking communion with forces greater than themselves. Their sacrifices, calendars, and myths were acts of survival, but also acts of belief, binding the earthly to the divine. And yet, so much was lost. Why did their great cities fall? Was it war, famine, drought, or something else we cannot yet grasp? Why do the 9 lords of the night still watch us from stone, their meaning only half understood? Why do some glyphs and carvings resemble visions of the impossible? These questions linger like shadows on temple walls, refusing to fade. The Maya remind us that history is never complete. What survives is not the full story, but fragments, allowed to reach us while the rest lies buried, destroyed, or hidden. Perhaps their mysteries were meant to endure, to remind us that the world is stranger and more fragile than we imagine. And so the Maya remain, not as a people lost, but as an echo in the jungle,
a riddle carved in stone, a silence that still speaks.